Welcome, everyone. It's 6:04 on Monday night. You're listening to the 107th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour on www.hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Age Out Angels provides one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to survive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face when they don't have a proper safety net. And this program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Ruben is on the big board tonight. Robin is producing. So good to have you both here, and thank you so much at home for tuning in. We've put together what I hope you will find to be an insightful and compelling view of the child welfare system and related issues that improve our communities. So get ready, because tonight on the Radio Hour, our guests are some really special people. You have met Carol Feldman before, if you're a regular listener of this show. She's executive director of an organization called Shine and Inspire, which is a pay-it-forward organization, and I'll let her describe that to you in a minute. And we also have a couple of representatives from an organization called Hope Loves Company Incorporated, and that's Jody O'Donnell Ames, the founder, and Kara Haggerty, the executive director. And they're here actually to talk about their program that involves helping families with ALS, where a member has ALS. So that's sort of a serious disease that doesn't really get talked about enough, I think, and I'm really glad to have them on the show to tell us more about that. So stay with us for the whole hour tonight, and I promise you'll be just a little richer for having done so. And stay with Hamilton Radio all night for a combination of great music and talk. The Monday night lineup is really taking shape. At 5 o'clock every Monday, it's Urban Economics and Development. Then we come in from 6 to 7, and after us, The Rome Show, talking sports. And occasionally at 8 o'clock, I think it's like every other Monday or twice a month, there's a show called Let's Talk with Kat and Bran. At 9 o'clock or thereabout, Freestyle Freaks comes in. You can never tell exactly what time. That's why they're called Freestyle Freaks. So keep it right where you are, right here at Hamilton Radio all night long for great talk and great music. Now, please, take a moment, open a separate browser, and find us on Facebook. Go to my name, Greg Rapport, and hit that share button. Or even better, email everyone in your whole address book and tell them to go to hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. Tell everyone in the world what we're talking about tonight, and what you're going to hear here applies to every geographic region, including where you live. And what we talk about needs to be shared. So don't keep this private to yourself. We need you to help us share it. We really need you desperately, and we need you to tell your friends. There's a whole generation of youth out there who are being forgotten. And caring people like you and me and the folks who are in my studio tonight can't really sit still while that happens. And while you're doing that, let me remind you that we're here almost every Monday from 6 to 7 with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. Next week, January 13th, we're going to meet Jody Grinwald from an organization called Applaud Our Kids. Jody has an amazing music program. We've had other music programs on before. This one is different, and it's for youth ages 7 to 18. Really goes all the way up to 18, which is so important. Because, you know, the funny thing about working with urban youth is there's always this drive to, have these children grow up in underprivileged circumstances, go out into the world and, make something of themselves. But we don't give them the part of life that we refer to as enrichment, music, dance, art, theater, right? So how do we expect a young person who's never been exposed to any of those things to then suddenly go into a college environment and feel like they're not out of place? It's almost impossible. So Applaud Our Kids sort of helps solve a major component of the enrichment factor in a very unique and comprehensive way. So I hope you'll make sure to be here with us next Monday night, and be sure to tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. for our unfiltered look at the child welfare system and related community services. This is where you come to get the whole truth. And I promise what you will hear tonight cannot be found on the nightly news. And since we're live, you can write in during the show. You could go to the comments field on my Facebook page and you can write in. Or if you want to be part of the show, if you have a question that you want to ask to one of my guests, you can feel free to call in and join the conversation. The phone number is 609-807-2492. And we'd be happy to hear from you. Meanwhile, just a story up from Arizona. A writer named Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic reports that once again Arizona is facing a foster bed shortage. Now, this is the interesting part of this, included in the term bed shortage is actually a crib shortage for infants. There's been a huge demand for beds for kids under 6, according to Mary Cherry, Director of Foster Care and Licensing in Central Arizona for HRT Inc. HRT is one of the 21 private agencies that train foster families. And according to Ms. Cherry, there are a lot of little ones coming in. Now, see, while there was always a demand for more foster beds, and that's true like everywhere, the current shortage stands out because the children who typically are most easily placed, and of course that's the younger ones, can't find a home. The shortage is so severe that Child Crisis Arizona, whose Mesa shelter handles the overflow in the Department of Child Safety, can't find a foster bed, pronounced it a crisis. Last summer, there was no room at its 42-bed shelter, and this was on top of no open beds among the 200 foster homes the agency licenses. According to Tori Taj, the CEO of Child Crisis, her agency has seen a drop in new foster home application, even as demand for beds continued. So, DCS disputes that this is a crisis. I love it when it becomes just automatically politicized. They have to do that. They have to dispute that it's a crisis, because if they use that word crisis, then it sounds like they're responsible and they've somehow failed, which is a shame because they somehow haven't failed. What's happened is the opioid epidemic and a whole bunch of other circumstances have come together to create more demand at the younger level. But they dispute that it's a crisis. So spokeswoman Cynthia Weiss notes that there's always a demand for foster beds. But now, to counter her argument, DCS recently started offering $200 gift cards as incentive to foster parents who refer a friend who completes foster care training and gets a license. And then there's a $75 bonus after that for successful referrals. So they're offering real cash, even though, they're not characterizing it as an actual crisis. The time children spend in DCS Phoenix Placement Center has more than doubled in the last 3 months. Currently, the average wait is 21 hours, up from 9 hours in March, DCS said. The center is where children wait while staffers try to find them a foster home. The cause of the crisis would appear to be simple math. The number of foster beds is decreasing, and the number of kids is on the rise. DCS notes that 1,200 foster homes currently have their licenses on hold, meaning they're not open for more children. Holds happen when parents just want to take a break, maybe go on vacation or deal with the arrival of a new child. In addition to families hitting the pause button, more families have closed out their foster licenses entirely in recent months than normal. DCS attributes this to the fact that many foster families adopt the children they're caring for and then leave foster care. State figures show that there's been a steady decline in foster beds over the last year, down 8% as of May, compared to May 2018. As of May 31, there were 1,113 foster beds, and meanwhile, the number of kids entering foster care is up 19.5% in May compared to the same month last year. The overall total is 5,562 children in Arizona foster care. This is happening even as the overall number has dropped. I'm sorry, my mistake, 5,500 in Mesa County. The welfare system has dropped to 13,400 in the state of Arizona. It typically takes 4 to 6 months for prospective foster parents to complete the needed training, background checks, and home inspections. And we wish them good luck in Arizona. We're going to continue this story later. And if you happen to live in Arizona and you're thinking about fostering, now would be a great time to get into that. We're going to take a quick break. Hit that share button on Facebook. Stay right where you are. We'll be back in 1 minute with Carol Feldman, Jody O'Donnell Ames, and Kara Haggerty. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering where that came from, the Z-Zack part.
Yep.
Yeah. And we are back. So with me tonight is a guest who's been on the show before. Her name is Carol Feldman. She's the executive director of Shine and Inspire. Welcome back to the Radio Hour, Carol.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. You and I had a wonderful organizational moment with the Trenton Public School
Absolutely.
System, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And to my left are two people from an organization called Hope Loves Company. Jody O'Donnell Ames is the founder. Kara Haggerty is the executive director. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
So glad you could. I met, I guess, a representative of your organization. How long have you been around? How long has Hope Loves Company been around?
Since 2012.
2012. Okay, so it's been 7 years.
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is such an example of how hard it is for nonprofits to get the word out, right? You've been around for 7 years. I've had this radio show for about 2, maybe 2.5. And the first time I had heard the words Hope Loves Company was I happened to go to a meeting of the Minority Chamber of Commerce in the Trenton Minority Chamber of Commerce, and you had a representative there.
Lydia.
Lydia, right. Hi, Lydia. I'll bet she's listening.
Hi, Lydia.
And so you had a representative there, and that's how hard it is to get the word out. So I'm so glad we could just get you on right away. Now, your work is with ALS,
Correct.
right? So just take a moment, if you would, and just tell everyone what ALS is in case someone doesn't know.
ALS is a terminal neurological disease. Currently, there's no known cause or cure, and affects men and women and all ethnicities and ages. And it's a disease that affects the neuromuscular center. So basically what happens is the individual who has ALS loses the ability to use their muscles effectively. So if you think about it, your body is, everything that you do relies on a muscle. So typically people who are noticing signs may not be able to open a jar, or maybe they'll fall, that they don't feel confident walking. They might start slurring their speech. So muscles are atrophying or wasting away, and the disease eventually takes the person's ability to walk, talk, eat, and breathe.
So and it sort of sneaks up on you. It sounds like you wouldn't necessarily know.
Well, it's hard to diagnose
Yeah.
ALS because the process of diagnosing the disease is actually the process of elimination of everything else. And it's also tricky because it can mimic other things. MS is similar to ALS. And people don't want to necessarily give you that diagnosis. So it typically takes the average person 8 months to a year to get diagnosed.
To get that diagnosis. And of course, little boys grow up know that as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Correct.
Right? Which kept Lou Gehrig from continuing his career as a baseball player. And so when you get ALS, and the part that really struck me about the first thing that you said is that it affects all ages.
Correct.
So you're telling me that like a young person, a teenager, a preteen?
There are currently at least four young children and teens that we know of who are living with ALS. So it's not as common. The average diagnosis is between 40 and 70, but more and more there are younger parents facing ALS in their 30s, and there are even children with the disease.
And there's no like gene that they isolated or, some diagnostic physiological manifestation.
Well, there is a small percentage of genetic ALS, and that's about 5 to 10% of ALS, and so it's called familial ALS. So actually, when a family has familial ALS, 50% of that family will be affected.
My, oh,
So-
my, oh, my. So is that something that young people who come from that family can be tested for?
There's now a test for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would imagine.
But
I
most situations are sporadic ALS, which means it just occurs and there's no known history of ALS in the family.
Right. And there's no particular trigger onset that they've identified or...
Not really.
So
There are some.
frustrating.
It is very frustrating. There are some ideas that perhaps being exposed to chemicals, being exposed to loud sounds, and concussion, all of those things may play a factor, a part of that,
Yeah.
but
Nothing causal.
no one is certain quite yet.
Yeah, nothing that they've identified that's causal. Um, I, the part I think that scares me double, when I think about this is if you have ALS and your musculature and your neurophysiology is deteriorating, but your mind remains intact. So inside there is a mind screaming to get out.
There's a term that ALS makes you a prisoner of your own body.
Yeah.
That your mind is a prisoner of your own body because your mind, for most cases, most people do not have issues, and that your body is just failing around your ability, your mental ability, your body is just failing you. Complete opposite of Alzheimer's.
Right. Now you would think that this requires like gobs of research. Why isn't people with money like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and that whole group of people who pledged to help, right? The group of billionaires.
We'll be writing them.
All right.
That's for sure.
They don't return my calls.
I have an envelope at home with Bill Gates' name on it to send out at some point. But yeah, it's true. I think it's because up until the Ice Bucket Challenge in 2014, people didn't even know about
No.
ALS. Now people are starting to understand the term. However, they really don't understand the level of change and loss and difficulty that it presents for so many families.
Yeah, it's really devastating, and
It's a horrific disease.
yeah,
and
we're going to talk about that devastation. Was there some particular catalyst or trigger that caused you to begin this organization in 2012? Did this affect you directly?
Yes. In 1995, my husband, Kevin, who was nearly 30, was diagnosed with ALS. And,
That's so young.
and we had a 2-year-old at home,
Oh.
and we, like most people, knew about Lou Gehrig and knew something about ALS. But when we were diagnosed and were told that it was terminal and there was nothing we could do, it was devastating. You
Yeah.
feel really helpless that there's nothing you can do.
Sure. And this was now what? We're talking like 25 years ago or so.
This was, 1995, and he passed away in 2001, and at the time, he was paralyzed, speechless, relied on a ventilator and a feeding tube.
Yeah, but inside his brain, everything's working just fine.
I read his lips, and he would say cliches when he was communicating with me, and use his humor, and he was completely my husband. He just couldn't move.
Yeah, just inside. Wow. So back then, 22 years ago, 24 years ago, was it longer to diagnose than it would be now? Because I'm assuming a lot changed in 25 years.
I think that it's maybe a little bit better, but a lot of progress has not been made, sadly,
that's
in all of those years.
Yeah.
And ALS is still considered a rare disease, but if you go to an event, a function, and find no one in that room whose life has been affected by ALS or somebody that they know, I mean, there are many times I go to an event and people on both sides of me, when I introduce myself, have lost someone to ALS. So I think because there are 30,000 people in the United States living with ALS, although people are affected worldwide, but every 90 minutes someone is diagnosed and every 90 minutes someone dies. So if you think about that, that's why it's hard for us to get the word out, because the people who are advocating and speaking about it are challenged by the disease. And it's up to the rest of us to have the voice for those who can't keep that momentum going,
Absolutely.
and to do what's right and to find a cure.
Yeah, a lot of work is necessary. Can Carol, you're the happy part of the show tonight. Goodness, this is so sad. I mean, seriously, if we did an hour together, we'd all run out of here just crying. But we're doing some good things, I think.
Yes, we
you
are.
and I. Now, I want you to remind people what Shine and Inspire is.
Okay, so
Okay.
Shine and Inspire. We were also officially started in 2012, but I think it took us a while to get our 501c3, so we probably started a little before that. And I had always wanted to start a nonprofit, but I wanted it to be something different than most of the ones that were out there. I didn't want to just give somebody something and then never hear from them again. So we created Shine and Inspire based on the phrase pay it forward, which I knew nothing about. So when this started, everybody would say, oh, yeah, pay it forward. Did you see the movie? No, I never saw the movie. I still haven't seen the movie. Everybody tells me it's really sad. But I wanted there to be something happening when we would give someone something, that they would do something for somebody else, that would create a ripple effect in the
Right.
community. So people can apply to us for any number of things when they can't get their basic needs met. So single mom who makes $30,000 a year and her stove breaks. How's she going to get a new stove? Who's going to buy her a stove?
Of course. Yeah.
She can come to us and say, will you help? And in the application, it says, if we help you to shine, what will it inspire you to do? And they need to come to us and say, I will volunteer at Hope Loves Company 2 hours a week for the next 3 months, and Jody and Carol will supervise and say that I showed up and did what I was supposed to do. We say, great, we'll buy you a stove. I mean, that's the whole concept. It's all about paying it forward. They have to come up with a plan of what they will do in the community for a neighbor, walk somebody's dog who can't walk their dog anymore, do their grocery shopping. We want them to be inspired.
I like the idea of them volunteering for Hope Loves Company. Do you send people out to do, what's the word? Just to be with someone or a family. Is that part of your thing, or?
It's not
we
directly,
haven't
but
talked about your
indirectly.
structure.
It's not directly, but indirectly that does happen.
To assist in some way?
We have a lot of, so we have something at Camp HLC, which is our premier program. It's a weekend retreat for families affected by ALS. And something that we have at Camp HLC is a big buddy system for campers who are attending under 12 years old without a chaperone. And every single time I connect a volunteer with a little buddy,
Okay.
they tell me after camp, we're pen pals, we message each other on Facebook,
Good.
they send me holiday cards.
Okay.
So,
all right,
as
so
Jody
we
said.
can actually
Yeah.
use Shine and Inspire for the Inspire part, that they would volunteer
Yeah.
for
They're-
Hope Loves Company.
Or any number of organizations. And we have helped some of Jody's people before, because one of the other things we do is we have children's parties twice a year for families that can't afford basic needs: coats, hats, boots, book bags, sneakers. And Jody referred a family to us who was struggling, and her child left there with all kinds of wonderful things, and Mom was really appreciative of it. So we work together when we can. Jody and I are
Good.
buds.
Sure are.
This is so rare that two guests on the show actually know each other. It never happens. They always meet for the first time on the show, which proves my point about how fragmented the nonprofit world is, right? This has never happened before, and you guys even know next week's.
Yes.
Yeah, you do too.
Yes, very
yes, well, okay. So I'm glad to finally be in the loop here.
Hopefully the other Jody's listening too.
We'll
I
be
hope so.
listening next
All right. So, with this basic pay it forward concept, then you and I were at some meeting somewhere one day, and you started telling me about it's felt like a totally different thing
The closet.
now. Yeah. So the closet.
Okay, so I found out last summer that there are kids that don't go to school because they can't afford deodorant,
Yeah.
or soap,
Chronic
or
absenteeism.
body wash,
Yeah. Yeah.
or a backpack, or a new pair of sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the person, well, we have to do something about that. People say things to me, and I just say, okay, we have to do something. And sorry, I'm wheezing. So I came up with the idea of having a closet in the school. We call it the Shine and Inspire Closet. And the way it works is I get donations. I ask everybody for donations, and we'll tell you some of the places about that. But I had to find a school that was interested, and I know someone who's the gym teacher at Ewing High School, and she said we could really use this. And she ran with it. The person I talked to originally, we're still waiting on, but that may be happening soon. She talked to the superintendent. They got it up and running, and it's filled with soap, shampoo, body wash, razors, socks, hats, gloves, non-perishable food. Whatever the school sees a need for, we will do. And then you sent me an email, I guess. I think, Greg, you sent an email to Denise and I and said, you two should meet each other,
Yeah, and so that was to hook you up with the Trenton
the Trenton
Board of Education. Yeah, because there's a real serious need there.
So Greg hooked me up with Denise, who is the liaison for over 260 displaced or homeless children in Trenton.
Yes.
Displaced meaning they're sleeping on somebody's couch, or they might be in a motel, they might be in a shelter. And the number, she gets new referrals every single day.
Yes, that's Denise Kreese. Denise, if you're listening, we love you.
Yes.
Go on.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she has a room, not just a closet, that actually I was there today with my contractor friend, Tony Martin, who was going to put shelves throughout this room. And we've started giving her jackets and coats and boots and food and all kinds of things. And it has already helped so many families there. And once she finds a specific need, we'll fill that need. You know, like she has mentioned, some of the kids need uniform. They need a specific pair of khaki pants or something like that.
Do you know how expensive they are?
They are. You know what's really expensive? Because I'm old, I don't know. Is feminine hygiene products. It's unbelievable what they
Yeah.
cost. So we've got lots and lots of them. And the other item that I'm going to put a push for people who want to donate to our collection boxes is detergent. Because a lot of them have to go to the laundromat and places like that. They don't have washing machines in their home.
Right.
Detergent is really expensive. I was talking to her today, and I said, we got to hook up with Church and Dwight.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
got a connection there?
They're a good outfit,
We need
yeah.
a connection. And we've gotten donations from them, but in financial donations, but I haven't made it my way to the product side.
Uh-huh.
I need that kind of connection. So if you're listening, we need a connection for detergent.
No, we might be able to help you
That would be great.
do that, yeah, because that's the place to go.
So that is our second closet.
Yeah.
Our third closet is in John Witherspoon Middle School in Princeton. And everybody thinks, oh, Princeton, everybody, you know, is comfortable and has money in Princeton, and that's not the reality.
Oh, there's Section 8
families there.
housing in Princeton.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there are families there that are struggling as well, and they may have a place to live, but they can't necessarily afford clothes or a
Yeah,
jacket.
yeah.
They were telling me that the kids for concerts have to dress up. You know, you have to wear a white shirt,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
They have concert clothes in their closet specifically for them. And in John Witherspoon, the 8th graders are doing a service project, and they are coming up with how they want to do the collection themselves. So it's all
Wonderful.
about paying it forward. So at every closet, there is some kind of a pay it forward component of the people who are benefiting from the closet.
Yeah.
And the person who runs the closet does that.
Yeah, and you know, you brought up feminine hygiene products. That's the biggest complaint that I get, especially from females in group homes. You know, we'll say, I have to ask some guy, right, to go behind some locked cabinet and get some dollar store product for me that doesn't even work properly, and the humiliation just sort of snowballs at that point, and it's one of the things that really, you know, fries their cookies the most.
So you have
is
to hook me up with these group homes.
to
and
have
we've
to
got
be in
figure out
that.
how to get them
Yeah,
hygiene products.
you know, that would be absolutely
I've
amazing.
got some in my trunk right now, if you know. My trunk is always full of hygiene products.
Okay. We're going to remember that. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in 1 minute, talk more about how you can set one of these organizations up where you live. I hope if you're paying attention that you understand that this is something that can't be done nationally unless everybody sort of gets into the game, right? So we'll be back in 1 minute. Hit that share button on Facebook and don't go away. Yes, we do.
I think he's
Yep.
saying, how does ALS affect a
And
community?
then I'll talk
And we are back. Before we go further, I do need to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels. We've been gone for 3 weeks, and we had some wonderful donations in, and I'm going to talk about them at length next week because, as many of you know, while we were on hiatus, my mother passed away, and it was sad. She was 94 years old, and living in Florida. And when someone who is 94 years old in Florida passes away, everyone looks at you and goes, "That's a shame. Too young. She was just too young." Because in Florida, they expect you to go to 100,
Yeah.
and walk into your own party, on your own volition. So it was really wonderful to have her with us for 94 years. And she was a fabulous educator. And so I set up a fund because we are going to be working with the same Trenton school system that you're working with to provide those products, to provide education and tutoring and stuff like that. Because my mother developed a fabulous education method that she used in the 1970s, I guess it was. And it was really quite amazing, and we want to bring that method back to the Trenton school system in an after-school program, because I'm so sick of meeting children who graduate high school and don't have any skills. And it's just so frustrating, and we want to get them when they're younger at the high school age. Anyway, long story short, a lot of people donated to the Helen Rapport Memorial Education Fund, and we're going to be using that money to help these children do just that. And I'm going to talk about that at length next week and mention all the people who donated, and it's pretty cool. So, that being said, if there is a matching fund, an employee giving fund, matching gifts foundation associated with your place of work, we would certainly appreciate you contacting us and telling us how we can participate in that. Private message me on Facebook or email to greg@ageoutangels.org. And I want to remind everyone that you can donate to Age Out Angels every time you make a purchase from Amazon. All you have to do is designate Age Out Angels to be your Amazon Smile designee, and a portion of your payment will go to us without it costing you 1 penny more. I can make it easy for you to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile recipient. All you have to do is contact me either via Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org, and I can send you a link that will take you directly to our designation. If you just joined us, my guests are Carol Feldman, Jody O'Donnell Ames, and Kara Haggerty. And so I wanted to talk more broadly, Jody and Kara, about the effect that ALS has on the community. Now, I mean, the people that I deal with are typically in the urban areas, right? They're not high income folks. They're frequently disrupted families, either children not living with their biological parents in foster care or guardianship care, something like that. So the family unit is rarely whole. ALS, I would assume, has no preference.
Exactly.
So you find this in poor areas as well as
Everywhere.
high income
Everywhere.
areas.
And the effect is typically the same, because what happens is the person who, well, first of all, more men than women have ALS. And the average person with ALS lives 2 to 5 years. And so when you think of that progression, most likely they will no longer be able to work. They may have to quit his or her job. And then the person who, if they're lucky enough that there's someone else in the home, that person also may have to quit his or her job to be a caregiver. You think about the things we do each and every day, brush our teeth, eat dinner, use the bathroom. All of those things, if your arms aren't working and your legs aren't working, become impossible to do independently. So you rely on someone to do those things for you. And not everyone has insurance, and even if you do, care is limited unless you want to pay out of pocket for a private nurse. So across the board, ALS causes a huge, let alone emotional burden, but a huge financial burden to families.
So what happens if you live alone and you're on Medicare or have children and you're...
So I have
Yes.
someone who's emailing me and texting me who's just 50 years old and has ALS, and he has no one to care for him but his brother, who lives an hour away, and he's waiting to try to find an assisted living facility that would take Medicaid. And that's
how
where he
easy is that to find?
Not easy.
No, huh?
I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to contact any of the state programs and tried to get through
All the
and
time.
make
Yeah.
sense.
All the time.
It's frustrating when you're able to speak
Yeah.
and when you're able to, use your cell phone and your fingers are working, but try doing it when you're exhausted and you're fighting a terminal illness.
Yes, absolutely.
It's-
And frequently when you hit a state agency, and I use the word hit as in hit a brick wall, there's like a whole slew of documentation and stuff that you have to put together. I call it a sales packet, to prove for a fact that you are who you are and what you are and deserving.
And that being said, that's if you understand what's being requested, or if you get someone who
Yeah.
knows your situation, knows about ALS, and knows what you're eligible for. So it's a difficult process.
I can imagine. So, and then if you are single and you have children that you're caring for, then what happens to those children? They go into the system?
So when someone is living with ALS with children, I mean, what we see is a lot of times, because it's out of necessity, children become caregivers and are helping.
That's brutal.
It's just a total reversal of the roles.
Yeah, except, it's wrong. Children are, not mentally equipped for that or for what happens when that person is then gone. I mean, that's a big emotional burden, for a child. I mean, physically, children are strong, but the emotional aspect of that. So tell me about your organization, though. What's the basic structure of what it is that you do? Carrie, you want to
Sure.
take this? You're the executive director,
Yeah,
right?
so Hope Loves Company is the only nonprofit in the U.S. that is dedicated to providing emotional and educational support to children and young adults who have or had a loved one with ALS. And we do that primarily through children's programming that we provide at no cost to families affected by ALS. So I mentioned earlier our premier program, Camp HLC. We have a family fun day. We have a scholarship, a young ambassador program, which is like a leadership program. We had our first educational conference in October of 2019. And really one of the best things about Hope Loves Company is that we're able to bring together people who generally don't have the opportunity to meet other people like them. ALS in general can be an isolating disease, but especially for children because, when you go to school, you don't have any classmates typically that know ALS, know what it's like to care for a loved one with ALS. Your educators don't understand your coaches. And so that's one of my favorite things about Hope Loves Company is it's just this giant network of support
Yeah,
of people who
yeah.
understand.
I worry about the kids in that situation. Not just ALS, but we find this a lot when there's one child with special needs and another one who isn't. Right? The sibling who is typical brings friends over to the house, and right away the first thing that the others say is, "What's wrong with your brother?" Or in this case, "What's wrong with your father?" And so now that this child needs to have a narrative, to somehow, define that.
Yeah,
you know.
and that's one of the most common things that we hear after camp from our kids is that I can't believe that I didn't have to explain what ALS was or, what's up with my family.
Yeah.
Everyone just understands.
Yeah, sure. So now in this camp, I want a more visual picture of this. Is it like a summer camp? It happens when school's out of session.
We have 6 camps across the U.S. Our camp season runs from May to November. It's a weekend camp, and it's the typical camp experiences, s'mores and fishing, swimming, ropes course. But there's also what we call group shares or healing circles. So we have counselors or psychologists come to camp to lead those conversations. And we also try to promote activities that promote the development of coping skills. So yoga, art therapy, music, meditation
How long do they stay?
for the weekend.
1 weekend. Okay. You started this 7 years ago, 8 years ago now,
Yes.
and you have 6 camps across the United States.
Yes.
Wow.
New Jersey, Massachusetts, Indiana, Florida, California,
Illinois.
Illinois. Yes.
That's
we started
amazing.
with one.
We should do a whole show on how you did that.
A lot of coffee.
Coffee does it? Okay.
A lot
remember
of
that when
hours,
we're
a lot of
fundraising.
coffee.
It's amazing.
You know,
A lot of hours, a lot of coffee, and no sleep.
I love
I
coffee.
think. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't either. I guess we'll never get there. So, all right. So we are going to, with Shine and Inspire, you are going to
Yes.
create this closet.
We have created 3.
You've created 3 in different, what about the Trenton Public
That's
Schools?
Number 2, yeah.
Okay, so that's number 2. And is that in the high school where,
It's in the
because
Board
there's
of
a lot of
Education.
schools. It's in
It's
the
at the
Board of
Board of
Ed
Education.
building. Aha. Now, is there any thought about putting this in individual schools for greater access?
Schools can apply to us. You know, when a school applies, then we'll look at the application, as long as they have the space and they have staff who's going to run the closet, and they can let us know what they need and what the pay it forward is, yeah. We're
Oh,
hoping to open lots more.
I know so many people you have to meet.
Well, they have, I mean, lots of people say, well, we'd like one in our school. Well, it's a very simple application.
Yeah.
You go to our website, shineandinspire.org,
Yeah.
and we also have a wonderful relationship with Amazon, so they've been very supportive. They've been very supportive and have supplied us with some of the items that we need. And lots of people have done fundraising donations for us. Last week at Peak in Ewing, it's Pennington Ewing Athletic Club, they had a Zumba class, a special holiday Zumba class, and asked everybody to bring hygiene items. Well, the bin was overflowing.
Fantastic.
So tomorrow, January 7th, we are being supported by the Mercer County Board of Chosen Freeholders, and we are very excited that there will be collection boxes in every library in Mercer County, every Berkshire bank, and numerous other buildings across the county. It'll be in the County Administration Building, the Capital Area YMCA, Ewing Municipal Building, Ewing Community Center, and the Ewing Hollowbrook Community Center. In Hamilton, right here, we have one at Recovery Advocates, which is where my office is. Also at Mindful Wellness, which is down the street, and the Tri-County, Remax Tri-County Real Estate Office. So we've got them, you know, not the whole county covered, but they're all over the place right now.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know about the Youth Connect Fest on January 30th?
I don't.
I have to get you that information. That's going to be it's for homeless kids.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like a
definitely.
perfect place. I have like been storing socks for
Yes,
a
I know
year.
Denise has something also in Trenton
To give
at
them.
the end of February.
Good.
We'll be able to give out some things as well.
Good, good, good. Now, can anybody anywhere who's listening to this show start what you did?
They could try. I mean, start a closet or start a
A clo-
nonprofit.
I mean a closet. I don't mean a nonprofit.
Okay.
That's asking a lot.
If they're interested in having a closet in their school or
Yeah.
possibly in another area, they have to have someone who's willing to run this. So if a teacher takes this on, this is another job. So they're paying it forward by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to organize the closet and let us know what they need to stock the closet. But yeah, they can go on the website and fill out application, and we'll address it. The board meets once a month, but we can always meet in between if somebody's got a real need. But it's a process. So if they're interested, absolutely, they can contact me. We're on Facebook. We have a web page, or my phone number is pretty much everywhere.
So it sounds like the human being is the pivotal
Yes.
ingredient in this. And so when we connected with the Trenton Board of Education and you met Denise Crease, she then became that person.
Yes.
Who was available, you know, to take on that kind of responsibility. So
Yeah, she needs a staff of about 20. to do what
she really does. That's right.
But she has a lot of the moms who are paying it forward by filling the closet and setting it up.
Yeah.
So they're doing great work for
Yeah.
her.
So this can be done. You have to find the schools.
Yes.
First of all, you have to let them know that it's available,
Right.
and you have to sort of leave it up to them to say, okay, who's going to run this? I'll stock it. Basically.
A lot of them know about it. I spoke at the Mercer County Education Association last year, so that covers most of the schools in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So people are aware, but somebody has to take it on,
Right.
and the school has to approve it. You know, some schools have more red tape than others, as I've learned.
Yes. Well, and there's issues of allergies now and things like that. I mean, you never know, where the quagmire is behind a bar of soap, I suppose.
Right. But
Yeah.
the fact that any child would not go to school in this county because they couldn't afford deodorant, to me, was appalling.
It is.
You know, we have
Yep.
some of the richest of the rich in this county, and the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
You know, we do the whole gamut. So I said, well, this couldn't be, and then we had to do something about it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. It is one of the main reasons for chronic absenteeism, because if a child comes to school dirty, their classmates can be very cruel.
Yes.
You know, tease is a nice way to say,
Yeah, they're awful.
abject humiliation, right?
Yeah.
And that's what can happen.
The other thing I want to look at some point is whether we have lunch debt in Mercer County. Because
Okay.
that shouldn't be either.
Right.
We read these stories about them throwing away school lunches because the kids didn't have money. It's appalling.
It is. It is indeed. And how are they supposed to learn when they're hungry?
And they don't.
Right.
Or when there's trauma. And
Yeah.
you know that there's a tremendous correlation between trauma, absenteeism, not being able to learn if they're living in an environment that's chaotic or sleeping on the floor. We
Yeah.
just bought a bed for someone who's been sleeping on a floor with her child for months. She had been
Right.
homeless, she'd been evicted, and she's finally got a place, and we got her a bed.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And I guess I should point out that you, by trade, you're a psychologist,
I'm a
correct?
therapist, yeah.
You're a therapist,
Private
okay.
practice.
So
Mhm.
you're coming at this from a place of understanding,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of folks are coming from. And I have a feeling that a lot of people, even people who are listening to this show, haven't been made aware of the various aspects of trauma and the other emotional ingredients that go into a person just having too many obstacles to overcome to get through school or life.
And you can imagine if one of these children has a parent or a grandparent with ALS,
Yeah,
you know how hard that is.
yeah, that would just so compound.
You know, you're watching your loved one just wither away in front of your eyes.
Yeah, yeah. It is definitely one of the most gripping visual images that you could possibly think of is someone who slowly loses their musculature, and we did have experience with it in our own family, so to some degree, I do understand what it is that you're talking about. Are there places that people can go to learn more? Who are listening to this show? Are there places on the web? What would you do if you wanted to learn more about ALS? Kara?
Well, there are so many organizations out there, like Hope Loves Company, or organizations that educate about ALS, that provide equipment through loan closets, that provide clinics and support groups. It can be a struggle to identify who those organizations are, where they are, if you are eligible. There are some resources out there that are available to families affected by ALS. And what most families do is, Google. But what I think can be incredibly effective is actually Facebook. There are a lot of Facebook groups out there about ALS for caregivers, for patients.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a member of a few, and every day there are questions, comments, and hundreds of comments of support. Here's what I did. Here's what my family's doing. Social media is a really effective tool.
Jody, where did the name come from? Hope Loves Company.
Well, and I'm just going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to piggyback just
Piggyback
quickly,
on what she said.
quickly on what Kara
Go
said.
ahead.
So our website is hopelovescompany.com,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have resources listed on our page as well. And we are on all social media formats. And if anyone has a question, they can reach out to us at 609-730-1144. And there are many families, people don't realize this, but within 5 square mile radius, there are probably 10 people living with ALS, and people
Yeah.
don't realize that.
No.
And some in Hamilton, some in Robbinsville, some in Lawrenceville. I mean, they're everywhere. So
It's too inside. It just especially once it really takes hold.
right.
It sounds like it keeps you, locked up indoors for the most
Correct.
part. I know somebody who got a special van to drive their loved one around who had ALS, and it cost like a fortune. It cost
It's like $60,000.
Yeah, like
I
half
just
a
drove
house.
one 2 days ago. My neighbor actually lives with ALS. Her name is Sarah Cooper,
Uh-huh.
and everybody loves and adores her. And I drove around in it, drove her to go shopping in it, and
Yeah.
it's big and it's very low riding, and it's expensive, and not many people are lucky enough to get a van.
Yeah, who just has $60,000. I know one family who couldn't. I know another family who actually they did get it because of something about a veteran's insurance type thing that it turned out the gentleman had been a veteran, served in Korea, and
If you serve as a in the military of any type, then you have a higher prevalence of ALS, 50%.
Yeah.
So
And
there's
why is that chemical warfare?
could be.
Could be trauma, like Jody said earlier, concussions.
You said concussion. Yes, you did. You said concussion. Yeah.
There are organizations that are looking at that very closely.
Mhm.
Impact.
And where can people go if they want to donate to you?
They could go to hopelovescompany.org.
Very good. hopelovescompany.org.
And the name came from the fact that people talk about misery loves company. That used to be a saying.
Ah, yes, it was. It still
And
is.
it still is, although a lot of people don't know anymore that it exists. But the fact is that when you do have hope in any situation and you're surrounded by people who have hope, it makes that journey so much better than if you just faced it in misery.
Yeah.
So that was the
might
term.
make it tolerable. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And what about Shine and Inspire? Where can people go to donate to you?
Oh, we have all kinds of ways to donate. On the website, shineandinspire.org, there's always a Facebook fundraiser that I'm doing. It's pretty easy to just go on and click. It goes right to your account. Both of us also have the Amazon Smile. You only have to have your friends spend about $1 million. And then you
Yeah,
get-
for it to
then you
actually
get a
turn into
$30
money.
check.
Right.
But yeah, please like us on Facebook. Go on the website. Our next fundraiser will be April 3rd. We'll be having a masquerade ball. Our last one was a fashion show, which Jody was one of the models in our fashion show.
Okay.
I'm actually wearing one of the shirts from under here.
Fantastic. Peg Gold from Mercer County Community College sent me this article written by Monica Kelly. It's been a little more than a year since Kelly Ridenour decided to turn her successful for-profit cookie business into a nonprofit called Kelly's Cookies, For Goodness Bakes. Get the pun? For Goodness Bakes.
that.
It's so hard to do puns on the radio. It's almost not fair. Her inspiration was Kelly wanted to make a difference in the lives of foster youth who often end up homeless or addicted after aging out of the foster care system. She also wanted to help at-risk youth in the Placer and Sacramento County regions of Northern California. Kelly says her mission at For Goodness Bakes goes beyond just training young people how to bake and sell cookies. She truly wants to see vulnerable youth, aged out foster kids, as well as at-risk kids become successful in all areas of their lives. And by the way, January is mentoring month. It's official. It's the official mentoring month. And Kelly first learned how to bake cookies in her grandmother's kitchen, and she knows how powerful and life-changing it is when someone cares. When she decided to reopen her business as a nonprofit, Kelly knew that mentoring would be a big part. Not only does Kelly teach the basics of cookie baking, but how to package and ship the cookies, the fine points of customer service, cash handling and sales and marketing. Kelly says she's all about life enrichment. She career coaches, helps with resume writing, budgeting, even shares her knowledge of self-defense and safety. Her goal is to see at-risk young people have an incredible future. So Kelly Ridenour, we salute you. She's bringing fresh-baked cookies and self-confidence to an otherwise disenfranchised generation, making a difference through Kelly's Cookies for Goodness Bakes, one young life at a time. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. And we thank you so much for tuning in and maybe helping us spread the word. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, to my most excellent guests from Shine and Inspire, Carol Feldman from Hope Loves Company, Jody O'Donnell Ames, and Kara Haggerty. Let's make a date to meet right back here next week, January 13th, with Jody Grinwald from Applaud Our Kids. Put that in your calendars right now. Thanks to our engineer, Ruben. Music provided by Angel Fire. Our webmaster is Carmen Garcia Valera, and our social media specialist is Bailey Braverman. We'll see you 1 week from tonight, so until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night.